am Abby J, your melanated trauma girl, and I offer trauma informed healing rooted in grace. And as you can see from that amazing opener, today's topic for Dear Diary Collective is mental capacity. For those of you who are new and not really sure what Dear Diary is all about, it is an in person and virtual support group that is dedicated to melanated moms, dads, and families who are dealing with pregnancy and or infant loss. So we meet twice a month and just create this safe space for you to pretty much have like minds and people who have been on similar paths to have those conversations that typically you may only be able to have with your diary, hence the name Dear Diary. Three things to really kind of think about with this topic, which is mental capacity. What is that, right? Cognitive functioning and some strategies for nurturing and just loving on yourself through this process. I also have a co-host who might be popping on and off, Dr. Michael Wright. Hey
Hello,
there,
every.
how are you?
I'm very good. I'm going through my own trauma that I'm sure you can help me with in another episode. But I'm happy to be here with you, sharing some insight, some reflections, engaging you in this topic.
Thanks. I love that color on you, by the way. It's a
Thank you.
nice
Thank
warm,
you.
inviting color. All
Please
right.
sell me. Please sell me. Nobody seems to want me. That's a part of my drama. So anyway, we'll move on to
Listen, because we can get stuck right there. But
speaking
no,
of
so
mental capacity.
exactly, right? Exactly. So mental capacity after loss, I think, is a type of thing we don't really talk about often. We just like society really doesn't understand grief that well. Um, so it's kind of one of those things I feel like we just kind of push under the rug or we kind of skirt by it because it comes with a lot of uncomfortability. It's one of those things there where unless you have traveled that road, you really don't fully understand it. And I'd even question for those of us who are on the road if we even fully understand um what's going on, like what's expected of us, what's happening to us mentally, physically, spiritually. We are kind of pulling from information that we have, but honestly, it's not really adequate for the place that we're in. So dealing with any type of loss, right? The major term is grief, but that loss encompasses more than just the death. Um, Dealing with the loss of a relationship or a job or a promotion that you were turned down for, that you're more than qualified, just to make sure that all of us can find ourselves somewhere in there. When you're adding the loss of a child, particularly what we are here for, it's completely different ball game. I have lost some really great friends. I've lost two of my BFFs, which is my dad and my aunt. I've lost things. I've lost places, homes, cars. All of those things and losses combined did not prepare me for the loss of my children. So almost 10 years ago, so December of 2025, my first set of twins, Kieran and Cairo, would have been 10 years old. In March of last year, I lost my twin girls, Ashton and Aspen Lee. And like I said, the combination of all of those previous losses did not hurt or did not rock me as much as the death of my girls. Um, and so when you're dealing with multiple losses, a compact loss, it takes a toll on you. And clinically, what happens is we say our heart is broken, but that's not really how the body works. Our brain breaks. It literally stops in that moment because the pain and the hurt is so deep, it doesn't really know what to do with it. Um, and so it reconnects and you move on from there, but you are no longer the same person that you were metaphorically or mentally after that significant loss. Um, and staying with that thought alone, looking at mental capacity, if your brain doesn't know how to handle it, how exactly are we, right? How then are we expected to be these strong superhuman, you know, push through, get through it, move on as if nothing happened? How is that a rational expectation to be put on us from the outside looking in, but also on ourselves? Um, any
Can
thoughts?
I answer that question?
Please.
I have no clue. I have no clue. That's the answer.
Yes.
The challenge in that moment, I, I think we don't give enough credit to how completely broken that feeling is and how shut out and shut down a person can be. And I would ask you, because I'm more on the like blame the victim side of this equation,
Uh-huh.
be, because like you're like what are you talking? Because it's what happens that I see happening is we often allow society to tell us how we're supposed to react in those situations. And I think you're probably going to talk about that, the capacity of people to be your friend in those moments, because they're having a sense of this same thing that I'm talking about. We let society try to tell us how we're supposed to react, and then we don't actually look at how we want to react or how we could react or what the resources are around us. And we get deeper and deeper into trying to be, and
Mhm.
that exacerbates the brokenness and the feeling as opposed to going into healing. And I'll give you one example so you can kind of have a context for responding. So, having a client who says, I'm good. And I say, well, you seem very strong. And they're like, no, I'm not strong. I'm tired of being strong. I don't want to be strong anymore. I, I want help. But then I say, okay, well, here's some options for help. Which one works for you? None of those. I'm going to do it on my own. And I'm like, because I think the reason she was in that space is because she was trying to make sense of, I'm supposed to be strong. And so I'm going to be strong, even though I know I don't want to be strong and I'm not literally strong enough. But she just couldn't let go of what was required.
I think those are some really good examples. And I think the challenge or the rub with that is most cases when people, I think, what I've experienced, I'll put this, I'll talk about myself. It's kind of hard to offend people when you're talking about yourself. For me, I don't feel like most people came in trying to be, they came in trying to fix. They came in trying to push me along because grief and sadness and severe loss is uncomfortable. And because most people haven't sat in that seat and dealt with the uncomfortability, they want to kind of speed you past that point. And that's just not how it works. It's it's the difference. It's a combination of things. So one of the things that I do love that you mentioned was when we're in these moments, when we're dealing with profound loss, specifically in terms of losing a child or children, um, society tells us all of these things and how you're supposed to act and how you're supposed to respond. And culturally, we have all this pressure to kind of move it along, like you'll get over it. You can have another child. You know, pair that with some of the colloquialisms, which is a lot of people's thoughts processes, God wouldn't give you more than you can bear. Who told you that? Definitely no one who's lost a child. And so I think it's a combination of trying to use outdated or information that's not applicable to this particular pathway or moment in time, causes a lot of friction. It causes a lot of further discomfort and or pain or harm, to a person who is shut down. That kind of leads into like the cognitive functioning piece of it, like the brain fog, the loss of time, the feeling of just utter loss and despondency, for lack of a better term. um it's kind of hard to move past that point with outdated information. And so you'll get those times of where it's like, hey, I'm here to help. All of the things I'm offering, none of them seems to work.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a real life thing. Or my favorite thing is who's like, well, what do you need? I don't know. And I get how that could be extremely frustrating for someone who's showing up to fix it. But if you're just showing up to be, you'd understand really quickly that is a real answer. I'll give you an example. Ashton, which is my oldest twin, she was born first. So it was Ashton Danielle and Aspen Lee. Ashton died 33 minutes after I delivered her, literally on my chest. And we had the delivery surgery. We had an immediate emergency surgery right after that. The expectation was for me to come out of 2 major surgeries after the loss of a child, go pump to provide milk to NICU for my second twin, Aspen Lee, and go visit her. And what world is this realistic, right? 3 days later, after a hard fight, a very heroic and just unbelievable fight from Aspen, Aspen dies. I have to plan a funeral or whatever I'm going to do with my babies. I need to get the hell out of this hellhole of a hospital. I come home to my 2 other children and I'm bombarded with questions. I don't know is the answer. I don't know if I'm coming or going at this point. I know I'm in pain. I know I have to push through the pain because I'm expected to go to the funeral home. Like, none of these things are like in the natural flow of things. So when you have somebody who is trying to fix it or to do what they think is best, met with a person who is literally using every ounce of energy and mental capacity in their body to keep breathing, staying upright, and have to make more decisions, I can see how that can be extremely frustrating. And I commend those who stay the course and simply keep trying and keep showing up, because that honestly sometimes is the only hope and courage that we have. I call it borrowed courage. I was able to do and make a lot of those decisions because my coworker showed up. She was just like, I don't know how to plan this funeral. I don't know what you want for your girls, but I will sit here with you as long as it takes for you to wrap your mind around what you need to happen. That took,
Mm.
I think, 3 trips to the funeral home, not to mention the fight that I had to go through with the hospital to release my girls to the funeral home and get documentation straight, because it was inaccurate, it was very erroneous. And the fight that had to take place between the hospital, the coroner's office, and the funeral home. So nothing about this process was easy, and it was very expensive. Um, Again, mental capacity. How I look back at some of the things now, and honestly, some of it is very foggy. I had really great relationships with my nurses, and so listening to them, listening to my palliative care team, to my coworker, my work bestie, I call her Gaddy. I'm just like, wow, all of that happened. Like, where was I? She's like, you don't remember? No, no, I don't. But I think it was so great. I don't think I know. Like, your body, your mind, your brain can only hold so much at a time, which is why we call it mental capacity, the capacity that it has. And there are just times in life, i.e., dealing with the loss or the losses and the process of the losses of a child, to where you can only hold so much. Um, and that's just that. So I understand that, we have been taught that whatever is happening, you're strong enough to bear it. While I don't necessarily disagree, I do think it paints a very faulty picture, um, that is absent of grace in reality of multiple scenarios, to where we even have the grace for ourselves to not have to, number one, know how to do something, feeling as if we have to hurry up and get past where we are to be okay for outsiders who are not on this path with us.
Hmm. And that's I wanted to say something about that because that's directly touching that strength and I'm strong, but I don't want to be strong, but I have to be strong kind of sentiment that I was expressing earlier. What is the way that you process that? So you talked about how you do it, which is basically recognize that I can only hold so much. But then how do you process that? And maybe sometimes you can reflect on this. Maybe sometimes it's not you. Like you said, there's gaps even in your experience of that. Like you don't remember certain things, but how would you have preferred the people show up in that space of relieving you from the societal pressure? Like, so another simple way to say it is they were pushing you to get
Mhm.
over it, to get past it. How would they have just let you be in it?
Number one, show up. I cannot stress enough how low and lonely it is to experience death in and of itself, right? It's something that we all know it's coming. Most of us have dealt with death in one form or another, so we have some experience with it, right? Um, however, however, when it comes down to your children, none of the past experiences are really quite big enough. So number one, understanding that while death is death and we all will have to experience it, it is a horse of a different color. when it's your child's or your children. So I think just starting with that basis of this is not just another death. This cuts differently. It lands differently. It feels differently. Like the pain, I remember talking to the chaplain and I was like, every nerve ending in my body hurts right now. So it's not just another death. You've experienced death before, you know what to do. And you're right. But this is unnatural. You're not supposed to bury your children. It is not. So that's number one. Number two, showing up is 90% of the battle with us. Because here's a fun fact. We don't know what to do either. So the fact that you can just show up, whether if you're close in proximity, come and sit on the couch. Come and sit in the chair. You don't have to have or know the right things to say. You don't have to come and do anything. Just be here. Like, sit down. And if you're like me and you have a hard time just sitting still, bring a book, read a book. If you see something out of place and you feel comfortable, I mean, you should feel comfortable if you know this person enough to be at their home, then just put it away. You don't have to ask me if you want me to start the laundry. Laundry is the last thing from my mind. And you taking that one thing off my plate is a huge help, believe it or not. If you show up and I look disheveled, I probably haven't showered. So, hey, when's the last time you took a shower? Like, do you have anything in particular you want to wear? I had a C-section and a uterine repair. So I was cut the traditional way plus horizontally. So it hurt probably just as bad as my heart was hurting for my girls physically. So to physically move to do anything was extremely painful. So just that, hey, my shower is upstairs. I wasn't supposed to be going up and down the stairs. So it took me a long time to get up the stairs. So to have someone here to help me up the stairs, just listen out so I can get into the shower, which means I had to step up another high step, get out and come back down, be supportive. Maybe showing up, you're just uncomfortable with that. Send a meal. I can't cook. I'm not supposed to be standing. Or I have, maybe they have younger children, show up with some chicken nuggets and fries. I promise you. And I'm that mom who's very health conscious. So I didn't give my kids a whole lot of stuff. We will not complain. Send a card. You can even send an electronic card. They're free. Something that lets the person know that, hey, I'm thinking about you, I'm praying for you, but I'm also here with you, whether it's physically in your home or on your mobile device, or, there's old-fashioned handwritten cards. Like I kept every card. I have cards that I've gotten from students 10, 15 years ago. So there's multiple ways and multiple levels depending on your level of comfort for ways of showing up. That's number two. So number one is understanding that all losses are not equal. You can cancel that right out. Number two, find a way to show up that you're comfortable with. Number three is understanding the fact that it's going to be uncomfortable. There's no way around it. There's no amounts of prayer, songs, dance, jokes, food, drugs, or alcohol that is going to erase the amount of uncomfortability that you're going to experience. In my line of work, working in mental health for almost 20 years, teaching, traveling, working in churches, being a preacher, I don't care what anybody says. It still can be a little bit uncomfortable for you to be talking to someone and they just burst into tears. Like, what do you do? What do you say? The correct answer is nothing. You be there for them. grab a tissue, a napkin. I can't tell you how many times I just did this on my shirt, and they're just like, what? That's not you. It's going to be uncomfortable. So learning that uncomfortability is not bad. You do not need to fix it. Just be present. And thank you for bringing that up. That's I think it's a question that everybody asks, maybe mentally, or to the person who's in the throes of things. And it's just like poor timing to ask that question. But it's a very fair question. It's like, I'm trying to be supportive. I'm trying to be there for you. It doesn't seem to be working. But I think that's maybe a large part of it, is just understanding those three tenets is, again, all death is the same. Showing up, you're winning, hands down. I promise you, 10 years from now, I might not remember the joke or the meal that you brought, but I will definitely remember you being there. And just, it's uncomfortable. Part of it's uncomfortable for the support, but you have to remember it's also uncomfortable for the person who's dealing with the loss, because most of us, especially if you're like me, I'm not very open and vocal about a whole lot of things. Most people thought this was my first loss. And I was like, oh, no. We 12 pregnancies in, boo. Like, this has been a long, horrific journey for me. But it's also not something that I talk about a lot. I am used to being in my role of listening to other people and helping them navigate through their journeys of things, of traumas. So most of us who are dealing with loss, especially if it's not your first loss, we have learned to just kind of grin and bear it, because most people don't get it anyway, and it sometimes causes more pain when you're trying to open up and share things with people who don't get it, if they do not have the ability to be empathetic and just simply be and listen.
Yeah, I think that's a really important piece, this idea of just being, and that being important. Everybody wants to jump in and they don't like silence and things like that. They're not professional counselors. And even some professional counselors have trouble with silence. And that's your greatest tool in a session, is just to be with that person. But anyway.
Here's the catch, and not to cut you off, I do apologize. To be fair, right? To be fair, when we're in therapist, counselor, whatever umbrella you're under role, it's typically not your friend, right? It's typically not someone you know as intimately as you may know the person that you're showing up to support. And so I was extremely angry, and I've had multiple conversations about some of the people that I thought who would have shown up for me, who would understand where I was, were nowhere to be found. One of them was just like, "Well, you need to hurry up and get over this. We need to get you out the house." What? Like, how dare you say that to me? You of all people, the good doctor, should know better. And so I had to take into account that sometimes we don't practice what we preach, or we don't use some of those same tools and boundaries with our friends and family members that we may use with our clients. So I think that's another good point, and we could do a whole segment on just that portion alone, because I've worked with a lot of like grief coaches and counselors and therapists. I'm a part of many different circles and networks, and not one of them, almost a year later, has even came by and sat and checked on me. Not one of them have offered any of the things that they've asked for me or that we've done together for other mourners. I think we think, because of our industry and our experience with death and loss, that we should just be able to do it on our own. And I just think that's absolutely absurd. I cannot wrap my mind around it. Like, how could you think that? If that's the case, then why do we have practices? Why do we offer the things that we offer to mourners if they could do it themselves?
Yeah,
So,
I think the challenge is the um, mental capacity. No, it's the part of it's the proximity and engagement with one another. That's an interesting point. So yeah, a whole segment on that one. You should schedule that one. I wanted to go back to what you said just briefly about people not remembering. I remember I was supposed to be an usher at a funeral for a church member and his wife. He was survived by his wife, and I wasn't selected as an usher, but I made sure I still attended the funeral, and they had a greeting session where we went by and said, you know, what our piece to the bereaved,
mm-hmm,
and we would have my family and I would have dinners with this family, so we knew them intimately, and so I wanted to make sure that I made some gesture and said something to the grieving widow. She is, I think she's mad at me to this day for not attending the funeral.
okay, that you were at and that you spoke to her at.
Hugged her, everything. She does not remember, and I don't think she remembers that whole day. Like if there's not a picture that she can lean on to spur her memory, and there isn't. I mean, it wasn't, you don't take a lot of pictures at funerals. Well, at least that used to be the thing. But
Right.
she she does not remember me being there. Even so, that the gestures, you got to be prepared for the gestures that you do as a helper in those
Mhm.
situations may not register, but you got to show up anyway. It's kind of that thing of you're probably not going to get anything in return in terms of even the memory of what you're doing for a person, but you've got to be solid with
Mhm.
recognizing that what you're doing is valuable, and in the context of what you're saying, it's what you would like for people to do.
Exactly. And so it's called cognitive functioning. So that's literally a person's ability to process thoughts. The mental fog or the loss of time or loss of experience happens to all of us, especially if you're dealing with significant loss. And so that's a part of what that is, or what you experienced. Um, is like, not only was I there, I hugged you, I talked to you, and you remember, like that could be hurtful to someone in the support seat. But it goes back to those three tenets: is we have to understand that not all losses are the same, and the impacts um and the implications of that person's just capacity. It sounds like at that point in the service, which I still try to wrap my mind around it, before the death of my girls and afterwards specifically, I don't understand why families do it. I get it may be tradition, um, but most of us by that time we have checked out long ago. We are here because we have to be, and because our babies or our loved ones are lying in front of us. We are trying to prepare our being to know that if you do burials, we're about to put this person in the ground, never to be seen again, right? Like it is the ultimate expression or display of finality. Like I will never get to see them like this again. I can go to the gravesite, but this is the last time I'm going to be able to physically put eyes on my loved one. Um, and it's it's really hard to explain to someone who hasn't experienced it. It's just one of those things. So, like you said, it's showing up and being supportive, even at the risk of them not remembering it. And it might be years down the line before something clicks, a scent, like you said, a photo, a thank you acknowledgement, or something. And it's like, oh, wait, they were there. Or, at some point I had to talk to them because there's stuff that they brought to my house. Like they, you know, and that's what I mean about showing up down the line. You might not remember what was said or done, but there's going to be some evidence that you were there. Um, and that's what's important. Uh,
Critically.
yeah, that is what's important. It's so many things. Like hindsight is always 2020, right? There are things now that I think about with the death of the girls, even with just like the death of my dad, who was my person, him and my aunt. Like there's things now when I go back and I read what I had to do for his funeral, or like for my she mama's funeral. There's, like I said, there's still bits and pieces where it's like, oh my God, I remember that. Or what happened? They said what? They did what? Um, you just literally, I can tell you a few times I remember shutting down during like my dad's funeral. It was too much. It was entirely too much. If you've never been to a military funeral, prepare yourself if you ever have to go. If you have experienced them, then you definitely understand. It was the first time I'd ever experienced them leaving my loved one out. And here's what I mean by that. So typically funerals, you have the funeral, you go to the graveside, and they go ahead and lure them in while the family's there. They do not do that with military burials. They leave them in the pavilion and everyone goes. I was great the entire process of this until we were expected to walk away, and y'all just gonna leave my daddy out by himself? Like it wasn't even a gravedigger in sight. Like y'all have lost your mind. You have lost your mind if you think this was about to happen. And it was at that moment I had the worst panic attack I've experienced in a while. To the point of there's like, hey, we're not gonna leave him. We're gonna go and stand with him until they, go ahead and take him to where he's supposed to be, which I knew was a lie. However, it was what my brain needed to hear in order for me to want to be able to catch my breath, get off the ground, and get into the limo. Like it's one of those things that no matter what society has said, it doesn't line up to when you're in the moment. And that just kind of bringing it back full circle. I think point number 4 should be we really need more advocates and more people, pop calling the kettle black here, to really talk about what it's like when dealing with loss, or when we have discovered like some of the misnomers that we share with society, whether it's through religious lenses or just culturally. There's a lot of misinformation that is just very unhealthy for the person who's dealing with the loss, as well as the persons who's trying to be supportive of the person who's dealing with the loss. It's just erroneous thought processes and information that just don't line up in the thick of things or when life actually happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot. So let's take that as lots of great ideas for new episodes. And let's go through some of the things that we talked about, and you give your final reflection on these pieces.
Okay.
All right. Number one, that ring a bell? Show
Yes.
up to be, not to fix. That's a big
Yes.
one.
It really is, particularly to my guys. Guys live in the world of logic, and grief isn't logical. It doesn't make sense. One moment you've got it all together and figured out. The next moment I am literally on my floor, on my knees, sobbing uncontrollably. Uncontrollably. Um my guys just, it's kind of like, whoa, what happened? You were good. Where did things go? All right, let's get off the floor, breathe. Don't touch me. Leave me alone. I am breathing. Like, I'm fussing at you, right? I'm breathing. Stop.
Right.
Um,
And I can
and
tell you, you might as well. Yeah, we'll try, but yeah,
yes,
I don't
yeah,
like. I don't.
I
If you, the more you care about the person, the more you want to fix it because you just want to get
you want
back to
them to
that
be better.
equilibrium.
Exactly. And that person is gone. Sorry.
Yeah,
That the
yeah,
person no longer exists. For my
that's important.
women, it's like, if I do enough, she'll get better or he'll get better. That doesn't
Mm-hmm.
apply there either. Just be. You cannot fix it. Um Literally in that moment, that's something only God and time can do. And you just don't have the qualifications. So just be, take some of that pressure off yourself. And just show up. Just be. You can't fix it.
Mm-hmm. Wow. All right. Maybe related to that, keep showing up for helpers. Keep showing up even without knowing what to do.
Yes, the more comfortable you get in just being, what to do will come. Whether it's you hear them say something, or you just do the ABCs. Have they eaten? Well, I guess that starts with an E, but I was thinking eight. Have they eaten? Have they bathed? If they have other children, do those children need something? How is the living conditions? You can find things to do. If you're not good with maybe that awkward silence or that uncomfortability. But just keep it simple. Kiss process. Keep it
Mm-hmm.
simple. You're not stupid, but keep it simple.
Definitely. Last one. Those
Those,
who you help may not remember. So you got to commit to doing it. And this is, I think, a hard one for people because people say they don't want anything in return, but they want to be acknowledged for it.
mm-hmm.
And you got to get that fixed in your own head because that may not be close to what's possible.
Yeah, yes. I think grief is I don't think, I know it's more a labor of love than it is of pride and maybe comprehension, because some things just don't make sense. It won't make sense. Like, we may remember it, we may not. Sometimes we might completely lose our crap with you, the person who's trying to help. So if you're not committed to just being supportive on this path, on this journey, you're going to be hurt and disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
And that there's no way around it.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
it's also deeply connected to that thought of fixing things and expediting a process that cannot be rushed. So if we can
Mm-hmm.
align our expectations and our understanding of grief and what real support and empathy is, then I think that it'll definitely help minimize some of that um, feeling of not feeling acknowledged or celebrated, as opposed to simply being there to support.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. All right, so let's get into some of the resilience pieces that identify the capacity of individuals, your capacity, the person who's grieving. The first one of those, take your time, bro. Don't allow people to push you too fast.
Exactly. Exactly that. I tease often that I'm grieving wrong. But there's there's no right or wrong way to do it. What I can tell you is that ignoring it won't work, and trying to move quicker than where you are, mentally, physically, spiritually, you will self sabotage. Grief is like that toddler who does not want to go in that car seat. You will either give up and go, just let you calm down a moment, or you can go to jail for breaking their limbs, trying to force them into something that they just don't want to do. Grief is kind of like that. It's there. I think it's a girl because we're very persistent. We want what we want, no modifications, and she is there. Sis is going to be there until there is no longer what she wants to be. So be gracious with yourself. Understand that it is bigger than you.
And
You
that's
cannot
related.
yeah, you cannot rationalize your way out of it. You cannot pray your way out of it. You cannot sing your way out of it. You cannot bargain your way out of it. You
And this is,
simply
let me
have to
just bring
feel.
that one up. The don't accept what you should do. I write it this way: do what you want. Like in the context of grief, don't try to figure it out and make it pretty and all this. Just do what you want in the
Because
moment.
it's not.
Right.
It's painful. It's grief is because we loved, right? And I sometimes think we lose sight of that. So when you love someone or something with all of you, and that someone or something is gone, grief should be expected. It's something that we should welcome more so than a bore, because absent from that means we didn't have something, we didn't have this great well and expression of love. And so I think sometimes just some of the reframing of how we think about things, or our which is our perception of things, would definitely make a big difference, especially when it comes to capacity and acceptance. That there's no list of things that you should do. It's something someone told you that they experienced that may not work for you at all. So like you said, do what you want. So if you need to cry, cry. Like there is no award for being strong in grief. There is none.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that relates to, I think that's a good segue into the next one. Accept borrowed courage. That was a really good phrase you brought out. This idea that people should recognize when people come over, like with ADHD, there's body doubling. Don't ever
Oh
feel
yes.
bad about body doubling and you know that little the inspiration you get from other people in your space that cause you to activate your executive functioning. So I mean, it's the same in this way. Borrowed courage comes up when people
Yes.
show up for you and they just are, they just be in that moment.
No man is an island. And in 2025, it's like this best kept secret. We have become so individualized and so isolated from others and community and support and companionship, until grief is really uncomfortable. And sometimes you don't have it. But this is absent from grief. This isn't just in life, period. Sometimes you are just going to be terrified, or you don't know. Borrow borrow that courage from someone who believes in you, right? That is what I did before applying it to grief. There would be conversations where it's like, I know you can do this. Who better to do this than you? And I'm like, I can give you 10 other people without thinking really hard. But sometimes I had to borrow the courage from those who are encouraging me to do this thing. Grief is no different. Sometimes to get up out of the bed that day, The fact that the person who showed up, whether it was in person or on my phone, who goes, gosh, I can't imagine how hard this is for you. And I am really proud of what you're doing. It's like, oh, wait, you're proud of me for doing something? Like, all I did was get up today and answer the phone. Well, you didn't answer the phone the last 3 days. So that is improvement. Um, and honestly, that was the courage I needed to answer the next phone call or to get up and go brush my teeth. Borrow it. You don't have to have it all in life in general, which is why we need each other. But especially when grieving, believe in the belief that your friends or loved ones have about you, and let that carry you until you can reconnect with your body and believe it for yourself. Uh-oh, we can't hear you. It says, okay,
The
there we go.
last one fits that very well. That idea of allowing your friends to be the crutch when you need it. Why? Because you can only hold so much. It pretty much broke my heart, because this lady, the lady that I told about in the story, had been doing this on her own and successfully. Like, she's doing it successfully on her own, and like that's the session I want to do with you, is to talk about that kind of situation where you have the solution for people, but they don't want it from you. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like they know they can only hold so much, but they're
Mm-hmm.
not willing to let you help, kind of, right? So
Yes,
that's why I think it's important to release yourself. You gotta, and
but I
releasing
have
means
to
allowing
trust
somebody to
that.
help.
Here's a so here's the rub with helping, right, or not allowing people to help. Typically, the people that fight you or have high resistance, there's a reason, because I've tried to let people help
Mm,
and it didn't help. It created more work for me or more catastrophe, or now I'm in debt to you for you helping me like you said you would. So there's a reason. So a lot of times it's just trust issues. Can I trust you to, number one, do what you said you're going to do? And, and that's number one. Do I have enough experience with you to trust that I can take what you say to the bank and not have to worry about it or not have to give input? If you ask to to bring me a meal and then I have to give you all of the ingredients and walk you through making the meal, I'll just make the damn meal myself. So there's some nuances to that, and there's sometimes some other stuff that may be causing a little bit of that friction. But the moral of the story is, men, women, boys, girls, you can only hold so much. You have a capacity for a reason. The moment you get a drop over that, you're done. And
mhm.
that's human. That you did not fail. You're not letting anybody down. You're not broken per se. Um, you've maxed out. Be maxed out. If you have people that you can trust, let them think for you. Let them do for you, so you can kind of just veg out and just be and try to process what the heck just happened in your world.
Mhm.
Um, because the next segment probably should be what this new world looks like, because it is absolutely nothing like what it was 10 seconds before your loved one took their last breath. It's over.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. All right. So I definitely appreciated your conversation tonight, the contribution to the Grieving World Dear Diary Collective.
Woo.
Give me your final word and your sign off.
So, in conclusion, you're doing a great job. I am number one, so proud of you for even having the strength to click the button to listen, to be a part of this conversation. No matter where you may find yourself in this topic, I am proud of you. I My heart goes out for you and with you with the loss of your loved one, whether it was an early miscarriage, stillbirth, if you're like me, where you were able to carry and deliver your babies, and then your babies went on to be with the Lord. It is a feeling, it is a void that no one will understand unless they've walked that path. So my heart, my thought, my love, my prayers are with you. And we're here. You do not have to walk this path alone. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to know. We offer a safe space for you to simply be and process with like-minded people.
Thank you for that. Sign off.
Sign off. So, in closing, if you are seeking a just peace or a safe place to just be in process once again, or you're ready to reclaim your story, we are here to walk with you. Good night and see you our next session.